Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Welcome to the August meeting of the East Lampeter Sewer Authority. And present we have members Brent Stolzfus, Todd Stump, myself, Rick Robinson, Fred Clark, Township employees Ralph Hutchison, Charlie Thomas, HRG Representative Matt Cici, Township Representative Tara Hitchens. I see we have Cooper Hoover online with us. Can you hear us, Mr. Hoover?
Yeah, it's Miss Hoover.
All right. Welcome. I now invite you to join us in the pledge of the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. And the minutes for a couple of weeks now, unless there's any additions or corrections, are going to stand approved or written. Treasury report, sanitary sewer.
Rick, we have checks that we paid in the amount of $7,584.02. And we have a checking account balance as of the end of July. It's $11,822.05.
Requisitions.
There's one requisition number 03-6. For projects related to the State Route 30 bridge replacement, sewer relocation, and the Strasburg Pike sewer extension, totaling $2,154.50.
Motion to pay the bills and records. Second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? There's the report for the stormwater.
Rick, we have checks that need paid in the amount of $266,130.77. And we have a checking account balance in the amount of $1,146,905.70.
We have a second. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? So moved.
We need to sign this somewhere.
I think on the back.
Old business under sanitary sewer, Stauffer Run upgrade.
The electrical contractors received 5 of the NCC sections. The remaining 3, out of the remaining 3, 2 are supposed to be shipped here this week. Scheduled for mid-August. Not sure why they were all not shipped at the same time, but Once that remaining gear is received, the construction on the project can resume. The end of that waiting game here. Once that equipment is received, we'll have meeting with the contractors because it's been such a long time since they've done any work. Just to make sure everyone's back up to speed with what the process and schedule is going to be moving forward. And once we have that, we can then provide new change order for revising the date of substantial completion, final completion deferment.
Okay. System extension on Strasburg Pike.
We've the only thing we've done is, as requested last month's meeting, we started the preparation of the a funding application to Lancaster County for their ARPA funds that they have type of projects. One of the items was in the application is how much the authority would want to request Garland County. And they're looking for commitments on, your other funding sources. So speaking of Hutch here, since the last meeting, there was a discussion, suggestion to look for 50% project costs be covered by that funding and using the authority funds to cover the other 50%. But if there's any that people make those presently, you're writing the application for the extension along the entire route, but based upon last month's public meeting, if you have any to revise that. As well.
The only thing I would add about the application for the county is that they are taking these as they come. So the sooner it gets in, the sooner it gets considered for funding, and the less likely it is that they will have decided to turn off the faucet.
What you submit now, is there a possibility of any alterations to that as we look to make a decision on what we're to do?
I understand that the county's, looking for projects, that they're looking to proceed with. I think if you were to make a material change to what the project limits are, the county may reconsider that. Reevaluate consideration. They're accepting projects through the end of this month for application.
I've personally given this a lot of thought since our last meeting, and even before the community came in and gave us their opinion. I know it's the way I'm not sure what the record or what we have to follow at this point says that people have to hook up to it, but I didn't think that was right even before we got some strong input that folks didn't want to hook up to it. Cost to individuals.
Yeah, I think this is an authority decision. I think from a project standpoint, the connections, if a sewer extension is made, the township ordinance requires connection to that public facility if you're within the distance required by that ordinance. So township supervisors would have to be the ones to make exceptions to that based upon what's done.
So the supervisors could change the ordinance.
Right.
Change the ordinance and or waive the requirement in a specific situation. changing the ordinance would take some time.
Yeah, there were two options considered.
I guess a kind of question. The Everett's, they have a property. I'm sure the address is there. They stopped in to see them. I know, because I know they have the Strasburg Basin area, talked to, I think it's Blaine Everett, that property there. And he just finished putting a new septic system in because the township had required it with the, I guess, more additions, more bedrooms. How's that process going? I guess how is it that maybe no one mentioned to him that, you know, there's no guarantees, but by the way, the sewer authorities are looking at possibly doing some sewer there. And I'm not even sure what the process is. I know we have a sewer enforcement officer, is that correct?
The SEO for on-lot systems, yes.
What about this for a few months here?
I think part of that is, you know, to receive a building permit. You know, that process for what they're proposing. One of those check boxes, if you would be, you know, is adequate sewer service available? And for that, we have the online system. I know at last month's meeting, they were evaluating whether they wanted to proceed with their online or perhaps a delay from the township. Till decision was made.
They were here for the meeting. Talked to them at some length after the meeting. I had several phone calls with them the following week, and ultimately they decided that they wanted to move forward with what had been permitted, and they felt that was in their best interest. Although we were looking at the possibility of trying to work out a different solution, but they decided to move forward.
Do you have any idea how long the county would take to make this decision? Do they?
I think they're actively reviewing them, so you get the application and they may have an answer here by your meeting next month or October. So.
That would make the decision a lot easier.
It would make it a lot easier. Public funding.
Yeah.
So
The way it stands right now, without any public funding, it's really expensive per unit.
It is.
The other thing to consider is the alternative to this is if there is what happens if there is failed systems. What responsibility does the sewer authority, the township, bear with that? Does anyone know? Can you tell me what happens?
Yeah, when we become aware of failing systems, you know, the SEO needs to go out, evaluate the situation, and work with the property owner to find an appropriate solution.
But if it's a failed system and they can't redo the drain field, the alternative is holding
Holding tank, yes, as a temporary measure, yes,
or stop occupying the property.
theoretically, yes.
Yeah. Is there any other recourse back to the township? I mean, it's like if DEP gets involved, do they come back after the township to do something or what?
If we're aware of the failure and we fail to do anything about it, yes,
Yeah.
they would, yes, DEP would.
So the worst case is we're telling them they have to put it in a holding tank and I guess they have to do it. How do we make them do it?
Yeah, there are various state regulations that require properties to have appropriate sewage disposal provided. So would be enforced through those regulations.
But the township has to do all the way.
As usual, yes.
Yeah.
It flows down.
So your application, if we don't actually make a decision on what we're doing, whether it's nothing or the 8 units or the whole thing, that's okay for the application.
I think the if you're to submit for everything and the county base their decision on funding on doing everything along the Strasburg Pike, the gravity plus the pressure. And they said, well, we'll work you this amount of grant dollars to do that, to take it from. And he said, well, based upon that, we only want to do pressure pier. Even essence changed the project per se. So I don't know how the county would view that because they evaluated it based upon the entire length of Strasburg Pike, not just one section.
I think we can wait a month or two and see what the funds come back. That not hurt us other than pushing a project potentially back a month or two. I think that seems.
What are our options though, if, like I said, I've been on this sewer authority since I think the 90s. And I remember back then there was somebody that reported raw sewage going into the Mill Creek. And we never did, you know, I think we sent an officer out to check on it. I'm pretty sure that happened, but, you know, nothing has been done since then. It can't be any better today though, either for that. And I think that was on what I would call the west side, going on Strasburg Pike. I mean, the residents' responsibility of reporting something like that, you know, if they don't report it, how do we know that there's online systems that are failing?
It's possible that we wouldn't. That is possible.
Seems, yeah.
I don't know if an alternative related to the grant application. I'm talking out loud a little bit here without having thought too much on this, but suppose you could submit 2 applications.
For 2 different
one for each option that you're considering. And see what happens.
I don't know how the county would view that to say, we'll do either of these. To strengthen your argument, like why do you want to do one versus the other? Yeah.
Well, yes, this was the funding.
Right.
Well, I guess I got the impression that the reason to look at smaller 2 projects was because of, not just because of funding, but also because of impact on the number of residents that would be impacted.
Mhm. And it doesn't it solve the known problems?
Yeah, I think it probably would, yeah. So, you know, again, you know, if that's the priority for the authority, then, you know, go for
I think
that.
it's the first priority is to take care of the existing problems. The second priority is, you know, planning for the future of what could be a potential problem, but that's unknown. So I think it's our priority to take care of the problem. And if you're saying the smaller system takes care of the that we know of, we at least have to go down that road. This planning for the future thing, that while it could be a good idea to do it while it's all being done, is there going to be a failing system out there or not? Or if we even know about it.
Or it could be solved by a new on-lot system.
Right. Oh, or they can take care of it on their own. So I'm for looking at taking care of the known, there's known problems there. They gotta be taken care of with, you know. Think about the ordinance with the connection.
Well, now you're talking about just 8 people instead of 20 some.
It's closer to 30, I think.
Yeah.
30 was the big,
So out of those 8, and we've talked about this, you one is the one that came with the problem.
Right.
I believe across the street from that, staff noticed that black stuff is going in.
there's also a problem, right?
And then one of those is also the Everly property, which they seem to have had conversations with Hutch and their decision. So, yeah, I mean, I was all along thought maybe that was solves the problem.
You may be able to knock a property or two off of that. On the far left side, based upon the known issues that we are aware of.
But engineering wise, there's no way to do the smaller project as a gravity system.
Correct. You have to cross Mill Stream or Mill Creek there and get under. There's no way to do that. You don't have enough flow from on a gravity system for a siphon out of these.
There's not enough there to make a siphon work.
Matt, can you show us? You in theory could put these hoses here on gravity with a pump station.
But that's,
No, that's township maintenance center.
Can you show us which properties we were talking about? It would just be the smallest project.
This is the house that currently has the holding tank. And there's also one that's over here as well. With this house up this way, where you in theory eliminate perhaps that section of sewer here. And you know, if there's no known issues this way, you may not have to do that house there, but so you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Depending on what's down here, if that's a duplex system with a number of houses on a single lot or individual right pumps.
Okay.
I mean, so I think that's that's a good option.
Okay. Well, I think based upon what I'm hearing, then we can revise revise the application there for that. Based on just handling the issue here with the known defects. And if that's submitted, or you don't want to request 50% of the cost for funding, using that number there, or do you want some other number? I don't.
100%. That's request for 100%.
Yeah, I know they're saying, you know, is there other funds that you're bringing to the table for the project? So some entities may have funds they've received from elsewhere, or they're using funds as matching components. And I can't say if the county's going to view that favorably or not, for 100% versus using the road.
I mean, what's ever practical, I guess you think has a chance of getting approved. So it was I'm going from memory. It was a $600,000 project.
The, there's no company. Where thousand in that range?
My experience, an application that offers some local funding will do better than one that doesn't.
Yes.
You don't agree with that, right? So,
Motion, we just need to.
well, I don't think there's any motion to be made yet. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm just saying.
I mean, I'm
I'd like
just-
to see what funding is available
That's-
before we go into the project.
Yeah, trying to remember if last month you authorized submission of the grant application, which I think we did.
We did. I thought that was 2 months ago.
So we need to redo that
Right.
as a result of this discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you do have a percentage that you want to ask for, that's always helpful.
Yeah, I don't know, what should you possibly get, what is normally done, is 50 too little?
I was gonna make a recommendation to you, I'd say 50%.
Yeah.
Probably more likely to get a favorable response.
Yeah,
And approval from us, it won't help the application. Right?
Far as I know, I mean, what I'll ask is once we have built out and ask.
we can't envision how it would be.
So we'll need a picture of it before you like.
It's contingent, which funding you get.
In essence, you're the applicant.
Okay, so we agree 50% then?
Yeah.
Yes. You can get it in as soon as you can, please.
The only other related question I would ask the authority members is as far as continuing our communication with the residents on Strasburg Pike. Is there anything you want us to do now?
So at this time, we're not really thinking about going.
Publicly stated that, this time we're gonna take care of the known problems, which would be a scaled down project, which would affect X amount of properties.
I'm not sure that all the people who were here at the meeting we had in July heard that message.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, then that would be a good message to put out.
I mean, you're gonna get the question, which address do you think, is it all right now to put them in? I know we kind of kept
Maybe just put a
the,
little sketch with it and say, this is what's gonna be in the scaled down project. Taking care of the known problems.
Yes.
Okay, we can do that. Get something else.
I mean, I think there is something to be said as far as looking at the hookup that I wish there was some type of a cycle thing. In this case, with these system add-ons that you're saying you give these land, like they have like 10 years to hook up, or that they have so much to, to hook up, instead of that it's mandatory that they hook up within
60 days.
60 days. I just think with these system expansions, you're going into neighborhoods and areas that have perfectly good operating systems, but if they make a contingent on the sale of their property or up to a certain amount of years to get it done. I know that affects the financing and so forth, but for these system expansions, they're not that terribly expensive. It's not gonna kill it.
Yeah, I mean, if the authority wants to ask the board of supervisors,
That's what we would do, is go to the supervisor, an ordinance here, we'd like to see it amended.
Yeah.
That's the process.
That'd be my suggestion if that's the authority's wish.
I think that's a good, just to be proactive. It's up again next time.
Exactly. For these system extensions, that these properties have 10 years, or if they sell their property.
We're looking at,
Who makes the initial determination if they need to connect now?
If they.
If they must now.
So it's not with the SEO. Was it?
So like we know that there's properties with two issues out of these, two properties with issues here.
Right.
But I don't think anyone's investigated the others in this area, so to say, are they functioning okay or not? So somebody would have to make that determination to say if they need to connect now or if they can be delayed for a year period.
I think wouldn't that be the SEO?
But the SEO can certainly help determine whether or not there's a problem with an existing system. But I don't think it would be a good idea to give that role to decision making authority on. You have to connect or you don't. The other alternative is another on-lot system.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Then you're looking at the cost of the on-lot system versus connecting, which is a lot more palatable.
that would be the property owner's
And
consideration.
knowing that you're gonna have to do it within 10 years minimum anyhow, that's even more reason to connect. It's still be enough decision if they want to operate no different than it is now. Your SEO would go out and say you gotta put in a sand mound or you gotta put in a new drain field. How is that upheld when the SEO finds a failing system?
They have the authority to require,
Action,
some solution,
okay.
as an on-lot solution.
Solution, right. So this would be the same way as they could still do the on-lot solution, or they could do the connection.
Yes,
And as long as they know they've got, 10 years, they're gonna have to connect anyhow.
How do you police that, the 10-year thing? I mean, who's the authority that says, oh,
Well, the same one that would ever do the 60 days, Charlie looks like, right?
yeah. But
You're in 10 years. You'd be on a beach somewhere. I guess the question is that who would enforce it in 60 days too? Still have the ordinance is still there.
60 days is pretty easy to. Shorter time period than 10 years. I mean, holy mackerel, I'm thinking. Well, I didn't hook up, but who's paying attention to that now, 10 years later?
Or sale of their property.
Or sale, I agree with that part of it.
that's a tough one. We don't know when properties are sold. We're not, township and the authority aren't involved.
They would call, go ahead, sorry.
Wouldn't there be a lien on for the connection fee? There's no way the property could clear if there's a lien.
They would check to make sure they're
Connected.
No,
But it doesn't let them sell it.
but does that affect them in anything else they go to buy?
It wouldn't be on the sewer system, it's not like they call the township.
It's true.
So
Oh, they wouldn't call to say, what's my balance?
if there's a lien on,
If there's a leak, yeah.
there's a lien on the state, they can't know.
I wonder if these, there are other things that they might be calling us at settlement, which is long after a purchase agreement has been entered into, which may or may not address the fact that 9 years ago, you were told that you got to connect to the.
Yeah, but the buyer have, they signed a that called? Disclosure statement. When you sell a piece of real estate, you have a disclosure statement that says, you know, what do you know about this property? And so they're gonna say nothing, then, you know, the buyer has the out.
That's easy to say, Fred, but you know, they want the property. So, yeah, could they walk away from the settlement table? Sure. but
Buy the property and then connect to the system.
The seller should, I mean, it's tough for a township to remember how many properties, but a seller should know this is my property and I, you know.
And typically, we don't like to get in the middle of real estate transactions,
Right.
you know, between the buyer and the seller.
Well, they still have an option. To either take this option, which is the lien option, or hook up to the system. You're giving the homeowner the option. If you don't want to connect, then
I know if I was buying a property and nobody told me that I have 2 years left before I have to hook up.
no, you couldn't buy it because the lien would be on. It would not.
I understand that. But I mean, if you don't do a lien,
Yeah, you would. Because the other result, what you just said, all of a sudden they realize they got 2 years to go.
I
And
don't-
didn't.
They put a lien on for something that hasn't happened. Yeah,
No, it's, you put a lien for the connection fee.
which isn't due.
Well, I know, that's why it's, you put a lien on a connection fee.
On
They can't sell the property until they pay the connection fee.
Even if that is legal, that still doesn't get them connected, which is what the goal is.
No, but they can't sell it. The person buying it realizes they have to connect.
The connection fee right now, $26.50.
Right.
So they just say, oh, we'll pay the $26.50 and lien goes away, we sell it, we just exchange the property, we're done.
I didn't make them hook up yet.
There's a question too with this alternative on. These are residential, most are resident, shouldn't say, some are residential, some are, I think they all probably fall into the UK. But less than 4 U's. So likely all these grinder tanks are gonna be maintained by the township. Because of that, currently in that funding scenario, we have those grinder tanks being purchased and installed by the authority as part of the project. So you're right, in essence, going to have to get an agreement from those homeowners for access onto the property to install those grinder tanks. So you're going to have, it's not the sewer line will stop. I mean, the sewer line can stop at the right line, but you know, then the resident is responsible for installing the grinder tank. So or we want that incorporated at the current cost, it's incorporated in the project.
And the pump system sitting there for 10 years now.
Yeah, I would just stop it at the rate. And let them have the choice whether they want it connected or not.
Again, if the authority wants to recommend or ask the board of supervisors to either repeal or change the existing ordinance on connection requirements, that's strictly.
Have it altered, I wouldn't, because when you're doing a complete system with a plant and there, you gotta have, it's the only way that things work, to have the whole financial. I get that when you're putting in a sewer plant, you're putting in all these, you gotta have everybody buy. Because there's no way it's going to financially work without that. This is a system extension. This will work fine, whether there's 3 connected or 8 connected. will just be a little more costly. And we're saying to be fairer to the homeowners, to give them the option to say, okay, I don't want to do it now, but I do have to do it within 10 years. That's their option, or they can connect now. You put a lien on the property for the connection fee, that's the way it's registered. So that title can't change hands without that coming up at settlement.
Whatever the authority wants to propose to the board.
And you think that's to what?
I'm not sure it's legal at all.
No, there's a sewer ordinance that says it's the same thing as if you don't have someone connect. You can put a lien on for they don't pay their sewer fees, or they don't, you can put a lien on their property. To get
Because they haven't paid the sewer fees.
so there's an ordinance that says that they must connect within 10 years.
So you're gonna lock in the connection, the 2650 connection fee of today for a connection 10 years from now? That could be $5,000 by then.
In 2650, almost since I've been on here, that's.
Can you,
It's been that way for 10, 12.
I don't know, can you,
This one. It's been going since I've been here.
can you mean that now, if they've given a 10-year period, or would the lien have to start after that period of time? Like, I'm just thinking currently,
It has to be so it's distributed. So that you're right. What the amount of the lien is, what, you know. I still say, I don't know why you couldn't do it for the amount, not what it is. Because that's all the more the lien is for. You can satisfy the lien for that amount, but you still have to connect it within 10 years. Regardless.
Somebody in this office is gonna have the calendar that says, okay, it's 10 years, but then we're gonna send out notices to who hasn't connected.
I didn't say it'd be easy. I said it would be fair.
Okay. That's what you want.
Honestly, with technology that we have today, you no longer use calendars. That stuff is programmed into a system.
Yeah, and systems change in the space of 2 years, and computers are updated and people move, and so there's stuff that happens. I get what you're saying. And it's
I'm just saying it's a lot easier today than it was yesterday to protect those type of long range dates, because yesterday it was done with human intervention. Today it's pretty much there.
whatever the authority wants to propose to the board of supervisors, we will take it to them and ask them to consider it.
I'm with you. I know, I think it's kind of what I mentioned earlier, that, you know, you're spreading it, however you make it for.
We need system extensions. We need to do these things. You got systems that are failing.
I think we'll let the supervisor, we think it should be.
Because you have a situation where you have raw sewage running into that drainage ditch. We would have never even known it if the engineers would have been out there walking around. I think was it you that found it, or was it? Because you were out there looking. Other than that, we'd have never found that.
So no,
What?
we hadn't before that time, that's true.
And as you find problems, you got to take care of them. So that's why I'm saying you got to make it more equitably fair for the residents. So I think Hutch is saying we have to come up with the guidelines to submit to the supervisors is what he's saying.
I think it makes sense to at least ask the supervisors to consider altering the requirement. I don't,
Draft idea and float it by him and say, does that, I mean, are we wasting our time or not?
but I don't see, I don't know the history behind the 60-day requirement, so, but I think it's worth
That's
looking
because
at.
it's
and
always been that way.
Reasoning.
With the new system, with the new system, I get it because financially you have to have it to make the system work.
And you also need from an operations standpoint, you need flow in the system.
You need flow. Must make them connect.
So given that. Duration, does there need to be a condition put on it? You know, that it's an extension and not an.
It was maybe for extension. I'm still saying that there could be.
Here, if you had this going to a municipal pump station, like even something like that. And say you had an extension of 30 homes, had to go to a pump station. And you only had 2 homes connect, you're gonna have operational problems at that municipal pump station.
Right.
Yeah, you know, this one here. Because your one problem is kind of on either end, you're gonna have flow going through the whole thing. If you didn't have that, you had an extension with no flow connected to it, that's gonna plug, that's gonna cause operational issues. So it's on a case by case basis.
Case by case, yeah.
Does it have to be 10 years? I mean,
No, that just popped out of my head.
well, I'm just saying, I mean, if it's a 2-year period as opposed to 60 days. You know, it gives the people at least some time to try to save the money to pay for that or whatever. I'm just looking for
Well, you'll,
10 years to seem like a long period of time to me.
from the time they're notified to the time the system's actually put in is gonna be
2 years.
2 years.
I mean, this type of system here, if you were to say. It's 18 months, I would think.
Yeah, 18 months. So. Yeah, you stack another 2 years or 3 years on top of that. I mean, it gives them 5 years to save up for it. I mean, it's at least it's.
That's the only reason. Look, people can afford it. So. I think a couple years extension as, you know, as. But can you do it for just these add-on systems, add-on to the
Well,
system?
you'd have to write in, you know, some type of add-on system that are engineered deems as not necessary, that it's flowing at 100%. You throw it back on
I
there.
mean, if we ever, you know, did Route 23, like we looked at different times, I mean,
What you're saying makes sense. From an engineering standpoint, you can't have partial. It needs to be in some cases, but.
It's on a case by case basis. Yeah.
there, I don't think it's a bigger project like that.
For the developer, they put in 300 homes and they put in a pump station and they get 6 homes up, 12 homes up.
You may at first, you may have to have a pump truck that goes in there, suck out the wet well initially until.
Because it's just not getting enough of, yeah.
Devon Creek, they installed.
Devon Creek was where I was going with this. Like 20 homes there before.
They installed the smaller pumps and then as they built, the pumps would be up.
And had different size forceps, like smaller forceps initially, and then its flows increased it.
Yeah.
Right.
It was also saying low. Into that.
Oh, that's right. That was,
It wasn't just.
that was existing flow, right? Well, so you just, something about. The engineer approving it too. It's getting rather specific, but. I just think you're going to have more of these. Small extensions. I mean, over the years, wasn't there one on Rockvale? Wasn't there one over in 23? There's been these areas we've talked about. And it really comes down to, okay, you only gotta, there has to be a way to make this more equitably fair that you can get more of this done.
There are. I think the Asian China report, I think there's. I'm reading like 8 areas in the township, roughly that, were projected for potential projects that were identified in the 537 plan in 2012, of which this is one.
So you could define it as a sewer area expansion that does not have a pump station.
Where I get stuck is say that this system is, going to be a 2-inch force main that can serve so many houses. See that number, then you have to go 2-inch to a 3-inch, and based upon the potential connections. So if we were to install that there, but we only had a handful of homes connect, we wouldn't have enough there to get velocity in the 3-inch section. So it's really become very specific to the line. And that wouldn't necessarily be a municipal pump station in that scenario.
I think it's very straightforward to say, I think it ought to be a longer period of time than 60 days to require connection. And then, provided it's not 50 years, it's fairly easy operationally to maybe do some things in that interim period of time to make sure the system functions correctly.
And I mean, even if I've been involved in projects where you have 60 days, but there's only so many plumbers or in essence to go around, have just extensions that way because there's only so many plumbers that can do the work locally or so.
We did the interface system. It was like a 6-month period. For that reason, there was only so many plumbers and so many excavators and so many to get it done in time.
Only so many reliable electricians too.
Well, that's true too. Plenty of that. So,
Right, we're gonna move on, I think.
okay.
Treehouse update.
This afternoon, township down by Representative from City Lights for the treatment facility to view their pre-treatment system. It's something I think is very impressive system that they installed to mitigate their cost to the the system leaves. So that system is up and running. They're making some tweaks to it. They said they want to continue to make some tweaks as well. They found that they've changed their housekeeping program in the facility, and that's resulted in less flour making its way into the wastewater stream, which because I guess the lack of flour there, it's impacting their current filter press that they have installed. There's not enough material for it to operate. So they're looking at some screens But the city's reported that they're currently within permit limits for it. So they've offered that anytime anyone can buy. They've also completed the re-televising aspects of the sewers and provided video this afternoon. So kind of just asking to review those, take a look at the cleaning of the sewer lines just to make sure no buildup has occurred here recently. While they've got this process operation.
We do want to review it again, because I think it does all correct for the video camera that they did. They need to that should be, but we'll make sure what that agreement actually says.
Okay, any other old business under sanitary sewer? Old business under stormwater, Hack Stream Bank construction project.
I'm happy to announce that the stream bank construction project is at a point where it is matted and will be planted in mid-October. So this is, let's say, the east side of the bridge. And then this is the west side of the bridge. We've had excellent feedback from the HAC representatives indicating that the contractor on site was professional, cleaned up every day, did a great job, interacted well with anyone that was on campus, and they're extremely happy with the way the project's turned out thus far.
Another conversation. Plantings.
Yes, we went on mid-October.
Any other old stormwater? New business, sanitary sewer, city's flow monitoring project.
So we're still waiting to receive information from the city on their report. We had met last month. They anticipated should be issued in the next 3 weeks, but we have not seen it yet. So what we do, we'll take a look at that. Townships meter consultant, the OCC's provided data there to CDM for that. Their use and evaluation of the temporary flow meter versus the permanent one after the repairs. So
Capital projects.
No report on that. There was no action taken at the school committee meeting in July on the applications that were submitted. So the next potential meeting is September. Yeah, no, yeah. Usually it's like mid-September. Exactly. May occur after September. Unless there's a desire by the authority to move forward with the projects.
Additional funding, ARPA dollar.
You talked about that was the grant application.
Yeah. Any other new business under sanitary sewer? New business under stormwater, update on MS4, storm sewer camera project.
Yes, the camera project is underway, and that is a 4 to 5 year project at about $100,000 per year. The USD Utility Services Group has been hired through CoStar's pricing to do that program, and it is inspecting the stormwater pipes, what they look like following the standard inspection process, and that will all connect to the sewer awesome software as well. So we get full reports on that. They started 2 weeks ago.
Correct.
And they've completed majority of the greenfield.
We were trying to pull out the older developments where we know there's corrugated metal pipe, since that would be the first to go. So Terry and I actually are getting together this week to get in the next area to go to. I think we'll uncover western end, like South Bridge. Drive, Drexel. As much. So,
So this actually is like for even smaller pipes for like underneath driveways. Driveway entrance to the main road. 10-inch corrugated pipe through it.
I think they can, well, that might be
Actually have to connect. Where's it start? Where's it stop?
catch basins, the inlets in the street.
Yeah,
Yeah, if it's just a pipe that somebody, the homeowner installed, no, we're not investigating.
but I don't whose responsibility.
We have all of our, I don't want to say all, but a majority of our storm sewer already mapped. So we're giving them that information. So what we had mapped before, we didn't map people's driveways. If that's what you're asking.
So where's the corrugated pipe been used?
All the older developments, that was the main pipe installed before they came out with the ADS pipe.
Between storm drains, street storm.
On the streets through. Oh, yeah. Oh, we've got developments.
Probably as far back as you're thinking.
They got the corrugated metal, but then they actually went to asphalt with corrugated metal, help protect it a little bit longer. And then they went to concrete and plastic. So there's a lot of corrugated metal pipe out there.
Still being produced.
Yeah.
I can remember it was fall coated, but I can't remember. In public.
Yeah. Remember installed back in the 80s. It was being installed.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they're still producing it now, but the majority of the people going with the plastic. That's the reason we're investigating it.
Well, I mean, it's actually probably, but you're gonna have washouts and it's rusted out the bottom, washed out the bottom.
Yeah.
And
That's why we're investigating all of it.
you still have a steel cone, so it's not gonna settle, but it's just washing out the bottom of
The potential collapse.
it. Yeah. And who repairs all that?
Unless it's a major, major project. I mean, if we find hundreds and hundreds of feet of it through a development,
So any places that have storm saying that would be the township's responsibility then in that development.
The authority now owns the stormwater system. By agreement with the township's operating, maintaining the system. So there were funds budgeted through the stormwater fund for the authority to investigate the existing system, find out what the condition is.
You're gonna find work to do.
Absolutely, there's dig up repairs,
I mean, if you're hammering, you're gonna find.
well, they're on the hook to let us know if they find anything major that could collapse. Or they have to fall. We're testing the pipes as they're. We're going to throw a red line on this one because there's a lot. So. This company does it, as Tara stated, by quote, that inspections. All
There's a certain amount of infiltration that's allowed and that kind of stuff.
It isn't installed with perforations in it. It's a solid pipe. It's installed like any other.
Yeah, but it's like connections like sewer pipe.
You got sand, you got bands that cover it. It's just.
Especially if you're going through a wet area.
There. I know they used to have two different types of joints. I know you had them on plastic pipe. You had soil type pipe and you have water. Type. Oh, yeah, you get groundwater. Yeah.
There used to be rubber bands that you put the band over and to seal it up as a water to a joint in a real wet area, but if there's groundwater, it's going to find a way in.
Yeah, we're making friction rather than infiltration.
Okay, that's where I was going. I mean. Okay.
Any other new business under stormwater? No. Okay, other business here, we have to make a decision about this year. Recharge we, that.
We already did discuss this previously. I just saw it when I came in this afternoon. Said that we received this letter before. My attorney, so talk with the authority solicitor.
Supervisor. And two.
Probably your solicitor has also been involved in this project, so may need alternate legal solicitor. I guess the thing that bothers me the most about the letter is as I read it anyway, the suggestion that development activity that would happen on the East Lampeter portion of this property would go into the city system rather than your system. I think that's correct. In addition to the fact that I think there's a conflict of interest here that should not be.
Let's see how these, your solutions here or whatever.
Well, it does go into the Lancaster system, but it's still conveyed through these links.
I agree, that's what should happen.
Wouldn't that be the same? How could that change?
Again, as I read it, their suggestion is that whatever the
Where does it say that?
I think it's the last paragraph. We're talking about overall sewage flows from fire property might be less air, but whatever generated in slant there's going to be more because there's nothing right now.
Pardon?
Where they develop on the East Lampeter portion of the site would be more than it is today, because today there's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that should head to your system, and that portion of the property should be your company.
Closure just previous commitment, that's previous generated site, no sewage plants. No sewage plants.
That's a sewer planning.
Well, no
module.
sewage plan is being anticipated. Why are we even discussing this?
I told the copy of that letter there. Previously, with what the authority of that was, I had explained that there, so I guess there's been communication here. I guess that's like both city property and these things.
Right, the city line cuts through the.
Mr. Carey is going back for you. What's
Months ago, we talked about.
2 months ago?
Well, you missed last meeting, and if you didn't know that, we had some people.
I seriously, the chicken.
I think what we were, I think what he's saying about the sewer line, where this parcel exists. There is no East Lampeter sewer main along that property. I think their development for the existing building parallels the railroad track. I think that's where they're getting that comment from. Okay. Connection to that enforcement, I don't know. I think we're.
There are other connections to the force main.
Where's the force main at?
Pitney Road.
Sydney Road is,
South Run. The force comes out South Run Pump Station. Because
so the force main runs that
spinning down to
underneath Route 30 and
goes down to the waterworks and under the code. That's where South Run.
really?
Yeah. 16-inch force main.
Yeah, that's odd.
Oak Grove and Willow Grove.
So then there's connections onto that force main. So how does the city get flow from that property?
As I understand it, that existing building there's a sewer main that comes out of that, parallels the railroad track and heads towards.
The history of this property was first developed. That's one of the reasons the township city line looks as jagged as it does, because they were the only way they could get utility services was if they were in the city. So that area was annexed and added into the city. Services run out to it along railroad track. They just use the railroad track. Developed, so.
What would they do? Oh, that's so, but they still gotta cross the river some.
I think the city has a pump station.
West side or east side of the,
Someplace down there.
Like, you know, Costco and Lowe's, that's in the city. There's a pumping station between those two properties that pumps up to the railroad track and out through. Similarly, the old chick.
yeah, dude, shit, I was gonna say that, but I date myself.
Old red.
Didn't we decide,
So it's an area that's contentious, is what I'm hearing.
Apparently the owner feels that way. I don't particularly feel that there's any contention. For me, it's very cut and dry and straightforward, but
decided 2 months ago to just.
Yeah, I kind of agree with our former decision, that the conflict.
I think that's why I went back and reported 2 months ago. And I guess they were just saying, is there another direct? I think that's what.
Yeah.
I can report the same thing.
Yeah.
I agree. Any other business? Public comment?
Yes. Ms. Hoover has questions for the board.
Hi there. We had some of the sewer authority coming through and marking trees at the back of our property for the easement. So I was just wondering what the plan was, like once those trees are cut down to reestablish like the grass and trees that had been there previously.
Where are we talking about?
We're at 1673 Susan Avenue. So we have a large storm runoff drain at the back of our property.
Yeah, my name is Charlie Knox. I'm the public director. What the crew is doing is we're going out and establishing where we have our sanitary sewer right of ways and easements, which we have to maintain. What we're trying to figure out is what it's going to take to get in there if we have an emergency. And in our easements, nothing's supposed to be placed or planted. What the guys are doing right now is they're just marking trees that are actually in the easements. Sewer superintendent is getting with some contractors just to get some budget numbers to see what the cost would be to remove these trees or clear the right of way so we can get in there and maintain it. There's nothing set in stone that it's going to happen 2024, 2025. We're just trying to get the numbers together and what it's going to entail. Once we decide if this is going to go, all the property owners will be notified and what the plan of attack is going to be for this project. If nothing's going to be happening tomorrow or even this year, it may not even happen next year. It's just budgetary item purposes. Does that help?
Okay. It does, but I'm concerned when you say that we're not supposed to plant anything. The trees were already established on the property when we bought it, as was the fence. So, I mean, I did take out our lease and I did go over the sewer easement pretty in depth. And it does say in there that the condemner will replace the surface of the land and fences in their natural condition and will pay or cause to be paid to the parties entitled all damages to crops, fences, timber, buildings, or land which may be suffered in the construction, reconstruction, enlargement, repair, inspection, maintenance, removal, or relocation of any sanitary sewer main or mains.
Yeah, that's a lot of information. Sorry, you say that's in a lease agreement?
It is, yep, it's in our deed.
Yeah, we haven't had any deeds to see anything in verbiage or anything on it. Which we would be doing once, and if this project goes forward, we would do research on all that.
Okay, sorry, I'm having a little trouble hearing. You're breaking up a little bit.
So once we decide where it's going, also how many years this is going to take, we would do research on all the easements to see what all that entails to make sure we're all moving in the right direction.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure that there is some understanding on both parties that like we do have a little bit of protection from this, that like you guys just can't come in here and, you know, just dig up all willy-nilly and not have any plan to kind of put it back in its natural state.
No, I agree. I do apologize. should have had letters out letting the property owners know that we were going to come in just to do a budget project and not come in and just start clearing land. And I do apologize for that, which
Yeah.
we do this, but there will be letters going out in the future, and there will be communications to the areas we will be working in.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good. But I did just also want to let you know about 4 years ago, I think it was. It's not dated, but we did receive a written letter regarding easement obstructions on our fence, and we were asked to remove our fence permanently from the easement. So I do want to just make it clear that the fence was established when we purchased the property. We don't have any plans to permanently remove the fence. We'd be happy to help in the temporary removal of it, should there be construction planned. But we do plan to put it back up then after.
Okay, that future, if anything goes through.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Then we discussed if the plans go through, we go through
Sure.
this.
Okay.
Yep. That'll be put out on the paper. Does that help?
It does, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Thank you.
There's no other public.
I can go down.